Prepare to live stream. The meeting is beginning. Got it.
Most people and then the other ones.
Prepare to live stream. The meeting is beginning. Got it.
Most people
Yeah, give us.
Folks, hang on. All righty, this is just, let me get a thumbs up if we're having any weirdnesses or not weirdnesses. Sounds good again. Okay,
Thanks.
thanks. We'll start the meeting at 6:31, April 10th, 2023. This is the Old Farm District Neighborhood Association. We're going to continue, as always, to meet in live at the Senior Center. Once again, we got booted out of the room we're supposed to be in at the last minute, so we were having some technical difficulties getting this room set up. Should be a pretty quick light meeting this month. Our land use chair is currently on vacation. Everybody may or may not know we had our general meeting last month here at the Senior Center. We'll recapture and rehash that here in a moment. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is James DeRofi. I'm the new, recently re-elected to position 7 member, and our new position 1 member,
Jen Sawyer, community outreach, social media and such.
hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, Brian Kennedy, Bend Beautification Program, kind of track the money, etc. Also, like everyone else, re-elected for whatever position I am.
And I'm Ross Tinty, an LA rep.
And our land use rep, like I said, is on vacation. So we have 2 positions available on the board currently. We also have another individual that helps us with technical information and website design and newsletters, who's not a board member, but just a solid volunteer. That being said, there is one order of boring technical business. I need to get a motion to restate our board positions. The current board positions, or the previous board positions, I was the board chair. Our vice chair has stepped down from service. NLA rep, but beautification at large, social media, and also at large. And then and Karen land use. Can I get at least a motion from one of you?
Make a motion that we state that all board members resume their prior positions.
Yeah, second.
All in favor?
Yeah.
All right, great. That's the logistics of the hard part of a Robert's Rules of Order meeting. That said, we do have a couple of live people joining us. If you'd like to introduce yourself, you're welcome to. That is some of the better parts of the monthly in-person board meetings. We try to make them personal. This is relatively casual. If you have a question about something that we're doing, just raise your hand or interrupt. Just be nice.
Oh, I'm Ann Perry, lived in Old Farm now for about 3 years. So, just like to keep in touch with what's going on.
Jim Goodman, live on Old Way.
Excellent. There's a lot going on. You're second of them.
That there is.
So I don't think, oftentimes we do have a city councilor that joins us. That is sort of up in the air as the scheduling of that. If anybody online has any questions regarding anything city or county or not county, let's say schools and parks, we may be able to assist you. Please send us the questions. That being said, I'm going to go through some quick updates. There is a very brief NERD update, which means
There is no update from NERD. But we are reconvening end of this month, and then we're going to do in person in May.
and for I hate acronyms, but I'm also terrible about using them. So NARC is the Neighborhood Association Roundtable. It is an informal gathering of all of the neighborhoods associations, so they can sort of talk things out quietly, but they are open to the public, but they are not obligated to follow the Freedom of Information Act. That being said, we will go to an NLA update. which is the Neighborhood Leadership Alliance, and that is a public committee, with rules.
And we did meet last month. That was a relatively brief meeting as well. A few updates there. We also meet tomorrow, so I'll have more updates tomorrow, but that'll just, I guess, cover next month. One of those updates is two neighborhood street safety programs. Projects were completed around Roster House sometime in the last couple of months. Other than that, there's a fire safety event on April 22nd at OSU Cascades. And then there was some discussion around the fire levy that's been introduced and is under a lot of discussion. It goes to a vote, I believe, next month, right? So if you are unaware of that, please do check that out in our general meeting. The fire chief spoke about it at great length as well. And you can watch that. You can watch the general meeting video on YouTube. Just search for, I believe, Old Farm District Neighborhood on YouTube. You should be able to find it. And then it's up people play.
And Ross mentioned the Neighborhood Street Safety Program. You can go on the City of Bend's website, but to tell everybody what that is, essentially, the city had reached out to the neighborhoods and they all were tasked with figuring out which areas needed small safety improvements for pedestrian, bike, or just general concepts. We submitted our ideas, I think 3 years ago. And of course, they had to be staggered out because they're spread around the city, and ours just got done, and our updates or our requested safety improvements were both on Carroll and Roster House. There will be more coming in the future. They are funded by the GO Transportation Bond, which the city passed in 2020. People are listening, have family or friends, and are upset about people aren't stopping at intersections, if they need a median crosswalk or any sort of safety improvements that the city probably should do and can easily do without going through a long drawn out process. We are an avenue to help facilitate that.
We've gotten anything back from the city on the radar speed signs?
I'm sending that to them. You can start sending that to them as of 15th.
Oh, we haven't done that at one time. I thought we had to submit that.
You cannot submit it until April 15th, as it turns out. But I haven't looked into that.
And is that for what, is that for a fiscal year or a calendar year?
Yeah, and that's basically for the calendar year. Because it only runs from May till October.
Yeah, it's only 7 months.
You can't submit until like right before they're put them in.
And then they prioritize them and then send them.
So when do you think we will hear about what happened in our
Next month.
Yeah, probably.
do they count them all out or they can tell you when you're coming?
I think they just tell you when they're prioritizing as they see fit.
So for the few people that are listening online, essentially the city also asked us to send out surveys and take requests from people regarding the mobile speed limit trailers you'll sometimes see. And the city has a few of them and they divvy them up around the city based upon requests and desire. We submitted our request, and like Ross just said, the city has not decided on that scheduling yet. But they do not do them in the winter. They only do them in the better months, and I believe they're all solar powered with batteries is how they operate. I think.
Yeah, I don't remember that part. But
Yeah,
sure.
they're solar powered.
And then our top 3 or 4, one of them included Ferguson, which I removed because Ferguson's essentially closed, or there shouldn't be speeding problems with that. That at least none that a radar soon will help with.
I will tell you what I saw this morning.
Okay, but we're targeting 15th Carroll and Roster House, Murphy area, I believe on Roster House, with Ferguson out. And so those are we can only submit 3 at least for now. And then so those are the ones that I'm targeting. I did not put Reed Market in there, although that was 4th in the list for popularity.
So that's less of a problem just because of the congestion.
And oftentimes with the neighborhood street safety program or the speed limits, if it turns out that we know that there's going to be a construction project coming up that's going to shut down an area for 6 months or a year, then we basically reevaluate people's requests because there shouldn't be a lot of speeding going on if the road isn't open. So,
Ross, did you say 15?
Yeah, so in order of popularity was Roster House near Murphy, and then 15th
Near
Uh,
where?
Between, basically north of the canal,
Okay.
south of Reed.
Market.
Yeah, between Reed and the canal, and then Carroll.
So that's, and you said that's good for the NLA update?
Yeah.
Okay. Brian, why don't we, discuss the beautification project, a little bit of the history, and what would you like to see from the board and from the audience, or the populace?
Well, for those of you who may not be familiar, that beautification program is the city-led effort to clean up debris along our roads. In our NA, we kind of do it independently. We have our own equipment and schedule around times and days that work for most people. In the past, we've researched or surveys have shown that Thursday or Saturday mornings were best. We typically do a single cleanup each month from April through October, weather permitting. And we did cleanups on both Thursdays and Saturdays. So as we regroup for this new year, we understand, we're going to go from 40 to about 70 degrees overnight. So the trash and whatnot will reappear in force, and we need to get on it. So we do need volunteers. So we will put out an invitation to members of the old farm to see if they are open to participating. Volunteering does not mean you need to come to everyone, but obviously if you can, that's great. We usually have, we desire, 10, 12 individuals to go out at a time, and depending upon the number of volunteers that we get in any given month, then that sort of shapes our direction about what areas we're going to try and clean up. And we do try to move it to the worst areas and then all around the district over the course of the warmer months. So that's the background. There's a little bit of information that volunteers need to read and agree to, but otherwise we do all the legwork, pick the places, have the equipment, and then meet you on site to facilitate the cleanups. And so hopefully we'll get something going here before the end of the month and then roll from there. So we'll try to put something out soon about what people think works best for them, and we'll go from there. So,
And the equipment works great. It's like grabbers and vests, and so you don't have to, in most cases, pick anything up with your hands.
we're encouraged not to do that actually.
Really
Ross.
Good.
It's bags and grabbers and fancy bright vests. So it makes a big difference, and from driving the neighborhood, we need it again. So we're continuing to work with the Deschutes County Department of Solid Waste, as those of you who came or saw the general meeting, and we're hopeful that the efforts there will bear fruit in some revised manners in which they treat incoming waste. So less and less of it actually ends up on our streets that we have to clean up, and that they tighten the reins a little bit about what's coming their way, so that it actually gets to where it's ended the destination. So I think that's probably it for now, and I'll just encourage, spread the word. Families, groups, neighborhood associations, whatever, love to have people out to help, and get a big enough response, and we can rotate that around and get more done.
Yeah, if you decide that the street in front of your neighborhood or specific neighborhood or subdivision needs some assistance, reach out to us and we can help set it all up. And if you can get 2 or 3 people to assist us, 12 people can do a lot of work in a short period of time.
Generally, just generally speaking, the cleanups last less than 2 hours. So we usually we start early in the morning, so you still have your whole day. They're not overly strenuous, but man, we can cover a lot of territory.
Are you guys just gonna specifically do litter, or are you gonna try to do knapweed and cheatgrass place this year? Does that
No.
just depend on the,
You know,
yeah,
that's
just
just
litter.
That does not mean we could not help arrange a
Correct.
a weed removal or a noxious weed event. Many of the neighborhood associations in town do that.
So let's pull together.
Let's pull together,
Yeah.
and it's really just a question of if people want it, and if they're gonna participate. If somebody wants somebody to clean up their neighborhood, we can't find at least 1 or 2 volunteers.
Yeah, well, that's city-led effort. They usually gather, I believe last year they gathered at the old mill for some general instruction and whatnot, and then they went out to their assigned areas. So clearly, if there were people from the old farm who were interested in that, then that would be pretty easy to get started.
I have a question.
Yes.
Along those lines, I cannot remember where I saw it, but I actually saw a work crew from the correctional school.
Yes.
Do we know what areas they cover or if they?
They don't know what area. I mean,
I have not seen them since I.
yeah, well, it got shut down because of COVID. And then, so it's coming back, but it is also, it's not an enforced program. So there has to be some volunteers and there has to be some coordination in the sheriff's department to do that. And they are going to do more, what did they say, is it 50 roads? I mean, they should be doing 27.
The thing at Ferguson.
And we have seen them on Ferguson in the past, so,
And we mark it multiple times.
yeah.
15 could be good.
Yeah, so but I don't think there's any way to predict their behavior, so
Okay.
that's part of what we do is before each cleanup I go out and survey our district and say, this needs help. So if we get feedback from the community about areas, then that's great, because otherwise I'm just picking what I think are the worst areas, and then we go out and do it. So.
I just wondered if, we wouldn't want to be overlapping. They might.
No, well, we never go, no, and that's one of the things we're working on with, the solid waste department. Is because, they contribute to, staffing at the sheriff's department. And
They pay for half of the deputy.
they pay for half a deputy. And so one of our asks is that perhaps that half a deputy could do a little bit more work in our area. And one of these areas, one of the things that could be done is a little more enforcement around cover your load. We have, as everyone who has a trailer or even the commercial garbage haulers, they all come through our neighborhoods. And so we get everybody else's trash. And so it doesn't take much of a drafty cover, no cover, a loose rope, flailing tarp, and all that ends up on our streets. And there isn't really a good mechanism for cleaning that up. There's huge things like we have picked up mattresses, car bumpers and all of such. But if you have that, you can call solid waste and they will come get it. But meanwhile, it's still laying in the middle of your street or on your front lawn or whatever it is. So generally, if we're out on a cleanup, we'll usually take it. But yeah, those are all the areas we're trying to make a little more efficient, a little more effective. And I would say from our experience thus far with the acting director and the incoming director, they've been really supportive, and they're working with the county commissioners to try to get some formal language worked on and get their buy-in and support and all the things it takes to make those changes so that it's less burdensome on the neighborhoods. So far so good.
I will fill in for Karen regarding land use. It will not be as thorough. Every land use notification will be definitely put on our website, and we try to put on social media as well. There's one large ish development on Broster House, right near or on Peril, near the Broster House intersection. You're welcome to look about it or read about it. You have another week to comment on that publicly. According to land use notification, the developer only has to notify 250 feet beyond their borders and the neighbor association. We try to go out of our way to make sure people beyond 250 feet know what's going on in their neighborhood, because traffic, construction, new developments, fields getting torn under, it affects us all. One other thing I'd like to just point out is the City of Bend's website, which we have a link to on the very top of our website, goes to the Transportation Go Bond dashboard. You can look to see which projects are currently in design phases, how the money is being spent. And there are also agendas and specific public meetings that you can attend and listen to and provide input as to the projects that the transportation bond will be funding. basically the funds are secured, but how everything is done is not decided until they basically start working on the projects. They're all design build simultaneous projects. It's pretty much how the city does all these days.
I would also add that it's very unlikely that all the hoped for projects will get done with the dollars they have. Just because everything has become so much more expensive since the time the bond passed, that they're gonna have to make decisions about what's gonna hit the cutting room floor. And I think, people's involvement about how they want their tax dollars spent is really important.
So as a follow-up to that, this is sort of my take. The city staff, the last few months has reached out repeatedly to the people of Bend how to prioritize what sort of design standards. So one of the most recent meetings about a month ago had to do with Portland on the west side. Well, everybody wants amazing bike lanes, medians, streets, everything like that. But when you go and look at the street, they're dealing with power infrastructure, water infrastructure lines of 40 years just being glued to each other. And a full revamp of a street like that would be 40-something million dollars. They've only dedicated 3 million of it. So
I take an example.
as
Closer
an
to home
example,
is Wilson.
huh?
I think Wilson's a closer home example because that's the first intersection built to those standards, with protections for bicyclists and whatnot. And that was way more expensive than they originally allocated. So if you try to extrapolate that particular design element across all the projects that are on the board, and there aren't the dollars for it.
There is not the dollars for it. Do not quote me on this, but I'm not that wrong on this number. There's essentially, we have a transportation system plan that the city has put together for long-term, everything that we need. If you take the transportation system plan and subtract $190 million of our transportation bond, we still have around $400 million of unfunded projects that the people of Bend have specifically asked for and requested. And this is where it's going to come down to voter participation, citizen engagement, as to how things get done and why.
And when.
And when. But there is a transportation bond committee, TBOC, that is part of that. But just so everyone, when you talk to your friends casually, great. Everybody in this town is very engaged, so we'd love to see all these amazing projects. But the truth is, the money isn't there, just like the rest of this country. So it's going to be what happens, when, and why.
Well, that end though, I'm on the free market advisory board, and they led the conversation within budget, not what we can or should do. What can we do with the money
Can
we
you
have?
tell people? So for people that do not know, Brian was chosen to be a representative for the.
Well, it's an advisory committee helping provide public input into the redesign of the Reed Market corridor on either side of the parkway. That's the way to put it, because that's acknowledged to be very poorly designed, dangerous, inefficient. You can name all the things. And what I learned quickly was that there were, years ago, a really terrific plan for how traffic could have been handled there, but they didn't invest the money in it now for them. And now the money to do that plan would be extraordinary. So they don't have the money to do it. So it's with the money that we have, what can we do? Which is a very different way to approach things than doing it right from the outset. So it's really important. People are paying attention and they have a voice in these things, because you scratch your head going, how did we end up here? Well, that's how.
Is the overpass over the railroad tracks, is that even still in conversation on the
Yes.
market?
Yes, it is. That is the big ticket project.
So
And it is
Reed
a-
Market's what, 3? They're looking at 3 huge sections that they basically need to comply with the bond, I guess.
Well, the bond is only got to do with the overpass.
And this roundabout.
And, yeah, and that was the big promise for the bond.
Yeah.
And I think that is the question, because because it's gonna be enormously expensive. And it's the ticket that's going up every day, so how they're gonna do that and manage these other projects is gonna be a real trial.
It got pushed, it was originally supposed to be towards the end of the bond projects,
Right.
and now it's been pushed to the middle of the bond projects.
Oh, pushed up.
It was because all costs affiliated with it are going up so fast that if they kept it at the end, there literally might not have been money for it. So they start, and you can go on that transportation, go on dashboard, and they have how long the planning phase is gonna be. So they'll have to go through and do planning and start to make decisions of which businesses eminent domain comes in and removes, and things like that. And then there'll be a year of legal stuff that occurs before the shovels show up.
If you just go look at the Murphy Bridge and then spin around 180 degrees and look at Reed Market, you can see how big that's gonna be. I mean, what's there now, it's gonna have to give way for that. So that's a really complicated project.
So take the new Murphy Bridge, make it 2.5 times wider and longer.
And how long did that take start to finish to build?
To, well, if you don't count the sewer infrastructure upgrades that they did years, like 4 years before, 2 years.
So
I
you
think
know
that-
Reed Market's gonna be 3.
And none of that is counting the Reed Market roundabout changes.
Read in 15.
15.
Is that they wanna enlarge that and double lane it all the way, or?
15th.
And a few different designs, once again, none of them are chosen yet, but, it's one of those, I would say, for anybody in this town that uses Reed Market Road at all, I'll follow that process, it's gonna be years.
Wilson's almost done, right? It should wrap up at mid-May.
Yeah, they pushed it out a month.
That's gonna help.
To mid-May or to?
It was supposed to be done in mid-April, but they pushed it out to mid-May.
Weather.
Can you hear?
The last,
Oh, we have a question up here.
yeah,
Yeah, while we were talking about Reed Market, my name is Richard Bradsky, and I just got a notice about a Pettigrew sewer project that's supposed to start in May. And I don't know if you all got that or not, or seen that. So basically, Pettigrew is going to be closed from Reed Market to Bear Creek, starting in May.
Wow.
So that's going to put additional Reed Market traffic to 27th. And I mean, already it's terrible because of 15th Street, Wilson and Ferguson. And, you know, so they've got that scheduled. Do you know when the roundabout at 15th and Wilson is going to be completed? And
That's supposed to be mid-May, so Pettigrew can't happen until 15th is done.
okay, is that really what they said? Because that's what I was concerned about. Yeah.
so normally, the way they start and finish projects, they always talk to the emergency medical services. So you can't have certain roundabouts or certain intersections shut down simultaneously because it interferes with travel for EMS. So sometimes things don't make sense to us as we're driving around, but that is why they stagger projects in the way they do for emergency response times. And then regarding Pettigrew, that is part of Larkspur. So if it is beyond, like technically not touching this, we don't get the land use notification for it. But in addition to, what is it? Pettigrew and Bear Creek, that whole intersection is getting redone. And then there's some new developments on Pettigrew that are getting built. So when a development gets built, that is not funding or triggered by, say, the transportation bond. That's triggered by development and growth. And I know that's sort of a fine point, you know, from a taxpayer standpoint, but there's certain things the city has money for and doesn't. And then there's certain things the developer has to do, pick up the tab for.
Yeah.
And it is not a simple formula.
I was just mainly concerned about the traffic on Reed Market and how terrible it already is. It's the worst street in the city. And now what that would do if they didn't open 15th by then. So, okay, thank you.
And then the last land use, For those of you that did not go to the general meeting, there is going to be an extremely large, or is a possibility of an extremely large library project on 27th Street. The actual land use notification meeting for that is this Thursday at 6 o'clock, and it is online, and all of the contact information are on our website as well as in the newsletter that we sent out Friday. It was a very interesting presentation, but it sounds like there are still very short of funding of that project. So I would encourage everybody to attend that. Wilderness. So you're definitely going to be, you'll be looking at it.
I've gone to some meetings.
Yeah.
I mean, Ferguson's closed or partially closed through October or November, right? Well, we're talking about road updates.
Oh, for sure.
Well, yes, they're saying September, but that was before they hit water main and they hit the power line. So, yeah, now we have 2-inch steel plate we get to hop over to. Go one.
That's what happened, is they hit a water main?
Well, the word is that the water main was ruptured because it was just really old and faulty and they.
Ruptured, okay.
Yeah, and, yeah. So, one of the neighbors got a nice coating of.
Some water systems in this town are 100 years old and they're clay. So when you start digging over there, it's really easy to fracture a 100-year-old clay pipe.
Yeah, the canal's flowing again, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh, it's a big-
Also during the general meeting, we had a presentation from Police Chief Krantz. Kind of got shortened because we prioritized the fire levy discussion. Chief Krantz has got a new staffer, Jessica Rich, and they have reached out to neighborhood associations. We have the option of having police, I don't want to say presence, I'd say representation on our monthly board meetings. The board, we just have to figure out how we want to do that, incorporate that. The chief asked if they could actually come and sit in one for 10 or 15 minutes. I said, it might be fine just for them online for time's sake and taxpayer dollars. But part of that effort is to basically have the community have access to a police officer. The way I look at it is you have all of these ideas and concepts of what people think are going on in the world. They never bother to ask, say, police or the fire department or the garbage department. Hopefully next meeting, we will figure out how we're going to incorporate that into our meetings. So the library we discussed, the fire levy, there's all sorts of information. The neighborhood association is not going to take a position on that, but we will definitely direct you to the people to answer whatever questions you, your neighbors, or your homeowners associations may have about that. I was pretty blown away by their presentation that they gave to us during the general meeting. I had no idea how big the actual Bend Fire Department's service area is. It shouldn't even be called the Bend Service Department. It should just be.
It's the Deschutes County.
Yeah.
It seems like it.
It's Deschutes County minus a few small areas.
Deschutes County South.
Did they send us that PDF of that map? Can they send us a PDF of that district map?
Yes.
Anywhere online?
Well, you were running the presentation. Did they email it to us or how did they?
I'm gonna say have it, but it's going through some review processes and they're going to be published. So just look at it.
Okay. Okay.
And then. So that covers, some of the general meeting. We were just gonna briefly have a chat about it with the board. You're welcome to chime in if you went to it. Sounds like you went to it and you were there, right? No, you missed it. It was very good. We had a group of 3 or 4 different organizations with their tables advertising their concepts, the Pathway Pollinator Project. What was the other?
Oh, Hardy Plant Club.
Party Plant Club.
Yeah.
I know the Pathway Pollinators want to start working with this more and
Yes.
getting out their message.
Yes, and I think Hardy Plant Club is also interested in attending more events. So that's about what they're doing as well.
Okay, and then we had some really great swag that we gave away. We still have some of that. If anybody needs slow down signs, we have 3 different varieties, one of them in Spanish. So they're basically city approved. Can't say your homeowners association will allow them, but that's a whole different story. And we thought the meeting went well. We basically had about around 135-ish people at the peak that were just guests, not presenters or anything like that. And we didn't have a lot of food left over. Pretty much it all went away. So we guessed well, and that's sort of my take on it. What are your thoughts on how the meeting went?
Oh, yeah, it went great. I learned a lot of new stuff from, police as well as, fire department, so that was great to hear. Learned a ton about the new library that's, going, looks like it's being pushed through as well, so. Yeah, I thought it was very informative. So check it out and watch that on YouTube as well. Right?
I thought it was very informative. I would suggest maybe one less presentation, just because, at least if they're, these are such high quality that, each one could have had more back and forth and interaction time. So just for future scheduling, I also think just if we are in the same space, we should move the electronics table to the side so that my ear is not focal point for the camera for the first half of it. And then we can
I
further.
cut most of that out. So,
Thank you for the editing. And then
He wants us to move all the technical stuff where we just can't move his chair.
all the lines to keep the speakers from walking around mine, so we're trying to watch them, but no, otherwise I think people were excited, and I think there was good information today. Hopefully we can keep that going in future meetings.
I agree, I thought it went really well, but the speakers and the presentations were on point, and I got a lot of people coming up to me afterwards and saying it's great. It's a great meeting, and then there was some online commentary about how what we think, very informative. We do need to order more field guides. Field guides, we have, Western pollinator field guides, raptors, night sky, birds of those were a pretty big hit.
So what we've done is last year we commissioned a new logo, and then in addition to that, we've bought just a bunch of giveaway swag for the neighborhood associations to get the name recognition out. And on all of the stuff that we bought, except for the field guides, has a QR code which goes to our website. So we have fridge magnets and all of this stuff's free if anybody wants some. Silly pints. We also have silly wine glasses. The field guides were a big hit. Because ultimately, if somebody does have a question about what's going on, if you've got a fridge magnet and it's got a little QR code, you can click on that, and our website should be able to get you tell you what roads are going to be shut down when. And our website's pretty good. It has some things we still need to work on.
Let me ask you on that topic. Like, as far as connectability between the people who live in the neighborhood and you guys, you have websites, sometimes on Nextdoor, YouTube and Facebook.
Yes.
So all four of those, like, would you direct anyone if what's the primary one maybe that? Or
The website will always have everything,
Yeah.
but it's information, so it's kind of boring. Our YouTube channels, well, I mean, a lot of people don't like reading the technical manual of a building project that's going in. It just blurs over their head. But so our general meeting, the whole meeting's online on our YouTube page. So if somebody wanted to see the presentation from the fire department levy, they could go to our YouTube page, fast forward to that, and it follows the agenda that we printed in our history. So essentially, the fire levy discussion started around 7:15-ish, I think. And
you can go right to that?
yeah, so
See that.
within 5 minutes, and so you'll be able to do that. So that's, I mean, some people are just more visual rather than readers.
What would you say the Facebook is mostly?
That's Jen.
Yeah, that's just updates from around the district, upcoming events. I respond to inquiries on that as soon as I get them, or I try to. But if somebody wants to reach out to us, I'm the one that's answering on Messenger.
On Messenger.
Big or bad. And then on Nextdoor, it's just my personal profile and I put in the context if I'm speaking for the board or if I'm speaking for myself, but I'm always available to answer questions on there. And then if you go to our website and somebody wants to reach out to us via email, that's also a good way to get with us.
Yeah, if somebody goes to the contact page on the website, I think almost everybody gets it. So I do a lot of the responses.
I just wasn't always certain,
Yeah.
like if I want to know something, like what's the latest thing going on with the association, which one of these channels should I go to?
I think you can, so I try to post updates weekly. The most recent updates, I think, is the website, very technical updates. But for the most part, I try to do a couple posts per week of of high importance on Facebook and on Nextdoor under my name. I think you can follow me on
Next one?
yeah, no, it's not called follow, it's called a connect. You can connect with me on Nextdoor. And then I think whatever I post.
Will come directly to my.
Yeah, I think so.
I think you're right, because I had that, I got some. It's like your connection so-and-so has posted something, which I don't even remember connecting with them, so it's all over.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Social media.
Mhm.
It's fun.
Mhm.
Thank you, because I just kind of needed clarification.
Well, there's constant information coming in and we're filtering it, but we're not censoring any of it. So the city literally 3 times a week or 4 times a week sends us,
You
get this out.
Yeah.
Oh,
And so those end up on the website definitely, but sometimes they're either time sensitive or they just don't get out on social media fast enough. But if, like right now, I've got the website up, so we've got the weekly road report and the Go Bond dashboard right at the very top. So if you want to know what's gonna happen with what construction project anywhere in town, you can find out. If you want to know what the
so
long
it's not
term,
just our
Oh.
area, it's the whole.
when it comes to certain, every neighborhood association operates different. We are of the belief that just because you cross Reed Market Road, it still affects us. So we try to keep people, in the loop about, developments within the majority of town, not small things, not 1 or 2 homes.
Right.
The,
No, the big stuff, that's good.
the big stuff.
Appreciate it.
And then if we don't know, we can always direct them to a neighborhood association. Every NA has their own land use chair. And those people are supposed to know the nitty gritty of what's going on
In there.
in theirs.
Well, like my daughter's house, which is just, we're here, and so that's Larson, so trying to keep up with what's going on with the Larson. So,
Excellent. I don't have anything else as far as the agenda goes. We had some other things that we needed to talk about specifically.
Swag and whatnot, or
No, we can, I guess what would it,
you can take that offline.
how about this? And if we needed to reach more people and get more information out there to get people's questions, how do you think we could do a better job? And this is
Well, I mean,
open up to you guys online too.
social media is the way to do things, I think. I think mailers are, hit or miss and probably more expensive. I just, like I said, I'm still trying to wrap my head around which one of the social media avenues is the most used by people, the friendliest as far as using it. And I guess I would lean towards Facebook, but, yeah, I'm not sure.
Social media is very demographically. We don't do a TikTok page.
I don't even do TikTok.
But if we did, that would definitely be a way to get the sub 30-year-olds.
You're in China.
And China wants to know when the road's gonna be closed. Great. Bog down their surface and all the traffic.
I've checked out, one of the ones that we're gonna try to get involved in is Reddit. Or.
Another one?
Yeah, it's like what is Reddit? What is it?
It's
Is
just,
it news? Is it news?
It's just
No,
a
so-
forum, right?
so it's just an online forum. Reddit, there's a specific sub thread called Bend Reddit, which the mayor constantly updates what's going on regarding hot topics from a legal standpoint. And then people also discuss what's going on in the city, but then there's random bizarre chatter on there. It tends to be a little bit more monitored. I think they have a few moderators, excuse me, that use it. So if there's anything that's really offensive and things, it gets removed. And we have no plans of going to what I will call some of the more extreme, unfiltered social media sites.
And I think the 4 that you have now is.
We're like,
She paid me to say that, by the way.
I agree.
It should be. I mean, I think those 4 avenues should be plenty. And then maybe focus like you just said, like maybe the website is more the technical stuff, if you want to know that, but Facebook is more interesting. I didn't even know you had YouTube, other than just to watch things that were.
Yeah, and one of the things that I asked you and the few people that are joining us, if you live in a homeowners association, they have these walls that they don't want people knowing to get information in or out of. Please give us their contact information if you know who it is. So we can at least put them on our mailing lists. They might not tell us what they're doing, and that's fine. But if we know that a road's gonna be shut down in front of them, then they might want to hear that information from us. So if you've got any friends anywhere in town, make sure they contact their neighbor association with their homeowners association contact information. It is, I hate to say it, but it is a wall that should be broken down. There should be complete transparency about what the neighborhood associations are doing. And then homeowners associations are entirely unaffiliated with what we are doing.
Well, let me ask you, in the general meeting, when you had 135 folks, did you have time to kind of pose that question as far as how?
That's one of the reasons why I was suggesting one speaker, because we were largely, allowing others to present information which was value to our membership, but there wasn't a lot of business transacted there for us. And that also is a little bit of a lost opportunity, because when we communicate directly with 130, 150, 200 people, obviously the word's going to spread a lot faster than we're doing in 2s and 6s and 12. So that's my primary reason why I'm advocating internally that we give ourselves space to do that stuff in future meetings.
Do we have 2 general meetings a year or just 1?
So the city requires us to have one. Pre-COVID, we were having 2 per year.
Zoom. Oh, pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID, we were doing 2 in-person large general meetings per year, 100 to 300 people, depending on the topics of what was going on. Last year, we used the Alpenglow opening. We helped sponsor that.
Right.
And one of the things that we did at Alpenglow and at the general meeting last month is for quick sign up, we had a separate QR code that went to our website sign up page, so that when people put in their contact information, their names are spelled correctly, their email is correct, their phone number is correct, because historically we would do that all by paper, and that translation was horrendous. To read somebody's penmanship a week later and to go, well, I don't know what that letter is.
Yeah.
We would lose people really fast.
So we're gonna have a second one this year, or?
It's up for debate.
So we're on a fiscal year. So our budget that we have now ends summer,
July 30
so
or June.
end of
30.
June. So we're figuring out exactly how we want to finish this fiscal year and then factor in what we want to do in the next fiscal year. So
You wouldn't have a second one this fiscal. That's
no.
just- Yeah.
No, but generally you would have summer, winter, spring, fall type thing. Gotta just add one.
That's a good idea. I mean, keep the momentum rolling now that you've got the ability to meet in person again. Do a second one in the fall.
Well, that brings the question that I would always appreciate feedback on is whether our street signs, our A-frames, on the old farm.
I
district
saw a lot of
signs.
them. Are
Well, then
any-
what, do you read them? Do they trigger anything? What are they? What happens?
It's a little wordy, I thought. I mean, like if you're driving by at 35 or more, it's like, I could just catch that there was a thing and it said something about Old Farm, but then I knew the meeting was coming. I just know I couldn't go to it, but maybe less. I mean, if you think if people are just driving by, you can't read what all was on that sign.
There are limitations around what we can say, not say, and where we can post the signs, so that's just why I wanted the feedback from others, because we have the same understanding that a car driving by is not going, and they shouldn't be staring at the sign when they're driving by, but if, James' point, if we've been doing it long enough, people understand when the signs go up, it should trigger
Something's going
some
on.
memory that there's a meeting.
I kind of look at it as like a yard sales. People that go out looking for yard sales, they know that starting Thursday you do that. And then they know to turn left and right. So as long as we continue to do it, then
Yes.
it becomes a trigger.
I agree.
And if we brand, like to James' point, the swag stuff, we can get people things for OFDNA.
I love that logo.
Well, and that's kind of the idea, to make it easy for people to find the information, find the website. Then you also don't have to say, well, Farm District Neighborhood Association in every sentence. So that's part of what all this piece is supposed to work together. So hence we also on the signs use the logo to start bringing all that together. So
Yeah.
you see online.
So you see it, and you know exactly.
Yeah, hopefully, people go to their channels or the website to get the best information. out
At this point, I'm gonna open it up for just general commentary. Jim, where you live, there's gonna be a lot happening right across the street.
Where is he again? I didn't catch.
No, Wilderness.
Wilderness.
Right across 27th to the proposed library.
Oh.
There's gonna be basically a new roundabout for his entrance to his neighborhood. And it's gonna open up, I haven't walked around that area. They've already done massive amounts of, starting infrastructure and roads. Things, they've hidden it very well from 27th Street.
Yeah, they have.
Right now. Yeah, that's gonna be years in the making. Will be an ongoing thing of 27th and the impact on that area.
Now would be the time for them to widen 27 if they were gonna.
They most likely won't. And if you want, we can have a long conversation about this, but the urban planning has learned a long time ago, adding lanes does not increase road capabilities, road flow. If they did, then Houston would basically never have a traffic. Whereas, and I'll gladly go into detail with you. So the idea is like you have a roundabout that doesn't stop traffic as opposed to a stoplight. So 20 hours a day, those roundabouts, people just cruise right through. So that traffic flow stays more consistent. So as opposed to just adding more lanes and then a stoplight, which is essentially been timed on a 60-second or a 90-second cycle. So it's the stop and go, and then you have to start timing every stoplight around town. But then as soon as you have one school, like a junior high that gets out and every parent flocks to go pick their kids up, the entire traffic pattern is a mess. So if you have stoplights nearby, then it's even more of a mess. So that is why the city years ago made the decision to go towards the roundabouts.
Oh, I love the roundabouts.
Yeah.
But I still think that widening the street has got to help flow somewhat. I mean, we see the pinch points like on Great Market when you go over and then it's down to one lane going, I mean, it's just ridiculous.
One of the things that I've heard recently, so right now there's 3 street designations. There's your neighborhood street, your arterial, and your collector. And everybody in this town is upset about how fast everybody goes. So if you put in a 4-lane or a 6-lane road, then everybody immediately speeds up. And I've timed it countless times on experiments, how to get from one side of town to another side of town, taking 5 or 6 different routes. And you usually get there within a minute or two, depending on that. So that's where it goes back to the flow. And this side of town, Bend itself, we have the railroad and the parkway and the river. So those become choke points. So without a bridge to handle more, having 4 lanes and 4 lanes doesn't speed it up. And like I said, I'll have a beer with you sometime. I just,
Enlighten me.
yeah, there's just a lot of data for modern transportation. And adding lanes does not, it may, like for 1 hour, change the traffic, but everything else versus mileage and how much the roads cost.
Hmm, Okay.
Well, whatever they plan, probably won't be adequate in my view, because they're gonna have an additional 10,000 people. These are 27. So 27, there's no way 27 can be on what kind of additional traffic. And whatever they're planning on doing on Reed Market, we already have problems because of inadequate funding to deal with the infrastructure. So you can see what's going to happen over there between 27 and Reed Market. It's going to be a repeat what it was when they rebuilt Reed Market last time. It wasn't adequate. They don't have enough money
They
to
don't,
do all that stuff that they're going to need to do to take care of 10% increase in population in one segment of town. And it's just not-
fortunately, Knott Road will start to be modernized as well.
Yeah, going the other direction, but they're gonna develop that in.
I do not disagree, yeah. And a lot of it is the chicken or the egg. And a lot of it has to do with long-term laws in Oregon, Proposition 5 and Proposition 50 regarding property taxes, and how infrastructure is built. Some states, they build a big outer loop around the city first when there's no one living there. And then the neighborhoods get built around that. Whereas Oregon builds on, so
That's what I was
that's
thinking.
an ideological, debate, but there are various kinds of urban planning. And some of those cities that do build like the big, super bypass parkways, they take out either huge levies, huge bonds, or they're turning them into private. So toll roads are becoming
Hmm.
a huge thing in a lot of the country. And
Portland.
So-
Portland's very late to the game. If we go to like Florida, there's a lot of, like I said, depending on which metro you're in, they all have a different.
Well, that's what I was wondering, just like 27 seems to be kind of like the outer edge of town, or it was. And the main thing, are they gonna do another one further out east on the other side of where all these houses are being built?
So the urban growth boundary will be due for expansion soon. Well, the last one got delayed by many years due to lawsuits. So the one thing that we do know is that it's not gonna go south. You have the Deschutes National Forest basically to the south. So they're not gonna build high density right up to that for fire risks and wildlife situations. So the town will grow east and it will grow north. And as that happens, then the next row, the next row, the next row.
But then you're hitting into farmland, so I guess they're just gonna be buying.
Oregon law does not allow the development of farmland, so the urban growth boundary has to expand first. And then the planning happens, and then the city limits expand out to the urban growth boundary, and
The
then
zone changes.
and then repeat, and then repeat, and then repeat. And the idea, this goes back 50 years or whatever, is that, if you don't do it that way, then you have what a lot of other states have, is sprawl. So you basically have 10 miles out, someone buys much cheap land, builds this huge neighborhood out there without a gas station, without a grocery store, without anything. And then there's no way to actually fund the road to get the suburbs to here. So it ends up truly becoming a pyramid scheme. You have to keep growing in order to fund the roads.
We're at 7:30. So
We're at 7:30, so that is the case. I'm gonna ask the people online, do you have any comments or just general chatter you'd like to ask us? Okay, Sherry, just making sure all is good on your end. Okay, if that's the case, then I'm gonna call the live streaming and recording to an end. You're welcome to join us in person and always reach out to us if you have questions. Ross, if you can